Right now, somewhere, a Lamborghini dealer is selling a $200,000 SUV to someone who will never take it off a paved road. Bentley builds one. Porsche builds one. Even Rolls-Royce, a company that once found the very idea beneath it, now builds one. The luxury off-roader is the most profitable shape in the modern car industry, and every single one of them is a descendant of a vehicle whose own creator wanted you to be able to clean it out with a garden hose. He meant that literally. Rubber floors, vinyl seats, an interior you could hose down like a barn. The men who built this thing were not chasing luxury or status or beauty. They were chasing something far more humble, and they stumbled, entirely by accident, into one of the most influential designs of the 20th century. This is the story of the Range Rover, how a company that set out to build a better working vehicle ended up inventing an entire category and never quite meant to. To see how the accident happened, you have to start with a company brilliant at one thing and blind to everything else. To see how the accident happened, you have to start with a company that was brilliant at exactly one thing and blind to everything else. By the 1960s, Land Rover had spent nearly 2 decades perfecting toughness. The original Land Rover, born in 1948, was a pure instrument of work. Farmers drove it, armies drove it. It forded rivers and climbed mountains and dragged itself out of mud that would swallow anything else. It was, without argument, one of the most capable vehicles on Earth, and it was also, without argument, miserable to actually live with. Loud, crude, punishing on a paved road. Nobody bought a Land Rover because they wanted one. They bought it because they needed one. But across the Atlantic, the ground was shifting. A new kind of machine was appearing in American driveways. The Jeep Wagoneer in 1963, the Ford Bronco in 1966. These could climb a trail on Saturday and still look handsome outside a restaurant on Sunday. They were capable and desirable at the same time, and that combination was something Land Rover had simply never attempted. Rover's own American arm saw it clearly and made the point in the bluntest way possible. They took a Land Rover, dropped a smooth aluminum Buick V8 into it, shipped it back to Britain, and effectively said this:
"This is what people actually want."
The message landed. What Land Rover was missing was not capability, it was desire. Filling that gap fell to an engineer who thought like an engineer, not a marketer. Filling that gap fell to an engineer who thought like an engineer, not a marketer, which is precisely why it worked. His name was Charles Spencer King, known to everyone as Spen, and he had the perfect pedigree. His uncles, Maurice and Spencer Wilkes, had created the original Land Rover itself. By 1966, King had reduced the entire problem to a single sentence. He wanted a vehicle with better off-road ability than a Land Rover, but that was genuinely pleasant to drive on an ordinary road. That was the whole brief. No talk of luxury, no talk of status, just a machine that refused to compromise between the field and the motorway, and the quiet conviction that nobody had ever seriously tried to build one. The engineering that followed was quietly radical. King and his colleague Gordon Bashford bought a Ford Bronco and took it to pieces to understand its long travel suspension, then made a decision that bordered on heresy: coil springs at all 4 corners. Every serious off-roader in the world rode on stiff, agricultural leaf springs. King wanted something that felt expensive even while being built to go anywhere. The engine almost chose itself. Rover already owned the rights to that light, powerful aluminum Buick-derived V8, around 135 horsepower, sitting right there in the building. But the real magic was underneath. Those coil springs delivered something no Land Rover had ever offered: a genuinely comfortable ride on tarmac, while letting the axles flex over broken ground in a way that left early test drivers stunned. And it ran permanent 4-wheel drive, not a system you switched on when the road turned bad, but one that was always, quietly, ready for anything. There was just one problem left. Before you can launch a secret, you have to test it in public. There was just one problem left. Before you can launch a secret, you have to test it in public. And this was a secret Land Rover could not afford to lose. So they did something wonderfully cunning. To run their prototypes on open British roads without the press or a rival guessing what they were building, they invented a company that did not exist, and gave the cars a badge bearing a made-up name, a name drawn from the idea of a veil, of covering, of concealment, velar. 26 velar-badged machines drove Britain's public roads in full view of journalists and competitors, and not one of them realized they were staring straight at the future of the motor car. The disguise held perfectly, and then, on the 17th of June, 1970, the veil finally came off. What the world saw was a two-door wagon with a clamshell bonnet, disc brakes on all four wheels, that revolutionary coil-spring suspension, and an interior that seemed almost defiantly plain. No wood, no leather, vinyl and rubber, and a dashboard closer to a delivery van than a drawing room. But this was not cost-cutting. It was philosophy. This was a vehicle meant to move from a muddy field to a paved road and back without apology. And its makers had designed it so that a person in muddy boots and a person in evening dress could both climb in and feel equally at home. The motoring press had genuinely never encountered anything like it, a machine that could belong, without contradiction, on a grand city avenue, in the desert, on a farm track, and in a plowed field, all at once. And here is where the accident truly began, embraced by two different worlds at once. And here is where the accident truly began, because the vehicle started being embraced by two completely different worlds at the same time, and neither was the one Land Rover had planned for. The first was the world of pure adventure, where the Range Rover set about proving it could do everything it promised. Between late 1971 and 1972, a British Army team drove two of them the entire length of the Americas, from Alaska to the southern tip of Argentina, a journey that forced them through the Darien Gap, 250 miles of jungle and swamp, so hostile, it had been officially declared impassable. It took 96 days to fight through that jungle alone. They crossed it anyway. Then, in 1979, a Range Rover won the very first Paris-Dakar rally, one of the most punishing motorsport events ever conceived, and won it again in 1981. The promise was real. The machine could genuinely go anywhere. But the second world was the one nobody at the factory had predicted, and it was the one that would change everything. The people crowding the showrooms were not farmers, and they were not explorers. They were wealthy. Demand ran so far ahead of supply that a gray market appeared almost overnight, with buyers paying above list price simply to jump the queue, and owners flipping their cars for a profit within months of collecting them. The Range Rover began appearing at country estates and shooting weekends, at precisely the kind of gatherings where the vehicle you arrived in announced who you were. A machine engineered to be hosed out like a barn had, entirely by accident, become an object of status. And then came the moment that made the accident official. In 1971, the Louvre in Paris, the museum that guards the Mona Lisa, put the Range Rover's design on display as an exemplary work of industrial design. It was the first time the world's most famous art gallery had ever singled out a car this way. The staggering part is that the man who built it had spent almost no time thinking about how it looked at all. He had chased function so single-mindedly, with such total clarity of purpose, that beauty had arrived on its own, uninvited, and the art world noticed before the designer did. From that point on, Land Rover stopped stumbling into luxury and started marching into it. From that point on, Land Rover stopped stumbling into the luxury market and started marching into it deliberately. The upgrades came steadily: carpet, better seats, power steering, and in 1981, the Range Rover finally gained a proper four-door body, along with its first factory special edition, created with the fashion magazine Vogue and christened the In Vogue. It sold out instantly, so completely that Vogue became a permanent name in the range that survives to this day. The lesson was impossible to miss. The luxurious versions sold faster than the basic ones, at fatter margins with longer queues. By the mid-80s, with leather, wood, electric windows, and an automatic gearbox, the Range Rover had quietly crossed a line no 4x4 had crossed before. It had become a genuine alternative to a luxury saloon. When America finally got official sales in 1987, the wealthy took to it instantly, and the giants were watching. When BMW later studied that interior, its head of product development reportedly sat inside and ran his hands over every surface, cataloging 70 separate things he wanted to improve. That is how seriously the establishment had come to take a machine that began life as a better farm tool. They took it seriously because they were all by then chasing it. Porsche built the Cayenne, BMW built the X5, Mercedes, Bentley with the Bentayga, and eventually Lamborghini with the Urus, every one of them reaching for the same combination Spen King had assembled almost by accident in a factory in Solihull. King himself died in 2010, at 85, and stayed modest to the very end, forever pointing back to the rubber floors and the sliver of time he had spent on how the thing looked. He never pretended he had seen any of it coming. And that is the part worth holding on to, because the usual telling of this story gets the lesson slightly wrong. It says the Range Rover changed the world because one clever engineer set out to make a vehicle that was good at everything. But that is not quite what happened. King was not trying to build something the whole world would covet. He was trying to build something honest. A machine that did exactly what it claimed, with no pretense and no compromise, right down to floors you could rinse clean. He never designed the Range Rover to be desired. He designed it to be true. And the strange, enduring lesson buried in this whole accidental story is that the world did not fall for the luxury, or the badge, or the image. Those all came later, bolted on by other people. The world fell for the honesty first. It turned out that the most desirable thing a machine can be is completely, unapologetically itself. So the next time one glides past a valet stand, remember it was built to be hosed out like a barn. Some of the greatest machines ever made were never meant to be great. They were just built honestly, and the world caught up. If that is the kind of story you came here for, subscribe and stay with us as we keep pulling them out of the past.